for by your tax dollars. And today's decision takes that away. Essentially, it allows the United States to stop being one of only 7 countries around the entire world that allows late-term abortion. It allows states to be able to limit abortion at 15 weeks and earlier if they so choose. So it really returns it to the people, and I'm grateful.
Jeannie Mancini, the president of March for Life, thank you. Want to bring back in our Jan Crawford, our chief legal correspondent. I know you're still pouring through this decision.
I want to get to some of the dissents. Obviously, and keep in mind kind of where we are, the landscape here. 5 justices. Takes 5 justices to form a majority on the court. That's what we have today. The 5th vote was our newest justice, Amy Coney Barrett, who replaced, of course, the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That is decisive, right?
She was a fierce defender of women's rights and women's abortion rights.
And if she were still on the court, or someone who had replaced her who had a liberal perspective, the court would not have overturned Roe or Casey. But we have some powerful dissents from the 3 remaining liberals, all joined Justice Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan. And there is a joint dissent, not written by one with others joining. It's a joint dissent, meaning they all agree with this. And they emphasize throughout the dissent really what they see the court is doing here. And if I could just read from page 2, right at the top, the court's ruling, the liberals say, says that from the very moment of fertilization, a woman has no rights to speak of. A state can force her to bring a pregnancy to term, even at the steepest personal and familial cost. An abortion restriction is permissible. And it then goes on to predict states will feel free to enact all manner of restrictions, saying that we've already seen it, going on to predict that there will be many more to come. And then on page 4, the dissent, the joint dissent says, whatever the exact scope of the coming laws, one result of today's decision is certain: the curtailment of women's rights and of their status as free and equal citizens. Yesterday, the Constitution guaranteed a woman confronted with an unplanned pregnancy could make her own decision. But today, that is no longer.
And that is why I think it was such an important question you asked during that March for Life interview of what tools are being provided to women to go through the very dangerous process of actually delivering a child. That's what the maternal mortality numbers mean. That means it is a risk to your life to carry a child to term, more so in this country than other developed countries in the world. What becomes the policy response at the state and the federal level to that? What becomes the policy response to the children who are born into poverty in these states to women who would have otherwise aborted, because it puts even more of a burden back on those governments and on those taxpayers to provide potentially. What is our policy response there? I mean, that's kind of where I see another part of this argument going that impacts not just women, but families across the board in this country.
You raised an important point earlier when you said, what could the federal government do, suggesting that perhaps they can pass legislation to give more support for child care, more time off, enhance maternal health programs. There's also going to be a lot of questions about what President Biden can do. For example, can he do anything through executive order to make medical abortion more available through the mail and have the FDA do something like that?
Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Nancy Cordes, because she is with us and can dig in on just that very point. President Biden has talked about these so-called executive orders or actions, but would it really do anything, Nancy?
Well, Nora, it certainly wouldn't make up for abortion being banned in multiple states, but the president is being urged by abortion rights activists to take a series of actions that would make it easier for women who live in states where abortion is banned to go ahead and get an abortion. So, for example, just today, a group of African-American female lawmakers urged him to declare a public health emergency if this ruling were to come down the way that it now now has. There are others, as Jan mentioned, who are urging him to drop the last FDA restrictions on the sale of abortion pills. Currently, pharmacies need a special license in order to dispense those pills. There are many Democrats who want him to push the FDA to do away with that. Provide travel vouchers, possibly, for women who need to cross state lines to get an abortion. They want him to look into whether abortions can be provided on federal lands in states that ban abortion. So there's sort of a whole menu there for the president to choose from. The White House has been very quiet about what exactly he will do, though we do expect to hear from him sometime today.
Nancy Cordes at the White House. Also want to bring in our chief election and campaign correspondent, Robert Costa. He is on Capitol Hill this morning. And Robert, this is one of the chief legacies for former President Trump. He was successful, along with then Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, of appointing a number of judges to the federal benches, and including 3 to the Supreme Court. What do you think happens now with the midterms just less than 6 months away?
That's exactly right, Nora. This moment is the culmination of a conservative project inside the Republican Party to upend the federal judiciary, overhaul it by nominating conservatives across the board, including to the Supreme Court. Former President Trump nominated Justice Gorsuch, got him confirmed, then Justice Kavanaugh, then finally Justice Coney Barrett. This decision today landed like a thunderclap on Capitol Hill and on the American political scene. It changes the dynamics potentially for the midterm elections, bringing this issue, social issues, abortion rights, to the fore of a midterm campaign and discussion that had been primarily focused so far on the economy and on inflation.
And we're showing now the states with trigger laws that would restrict abortions now that Roe versus Wade is overturned. Most of these traditionally red states, as we call them, or conservative states, if you will. Jan, you were talking about, and in many of these states, it will be illegal today, it's already illegal.
It was immediate. That's the way the laws were written. Some states requires a signature. Again, I'm sure we'll see that in some state capitals this afternoon, where there'll be fanfare signing it. Then it will take effect later this afternoon.
Right, and that's why when we talked about Michigan, for example, where it's already illegal under this 1931 law, you have the governor, a Democratic governor with a Republican legislature, turning to the courts to have a fight about this. So yesterday you had Vice President Harris meeting with about 7 state attorneys general to talk about finding creative solutions here. They want to look like they're doing something, though as Jan just laid out, there's very little that can be done to actually change this. But at the state level, the Biden administration wants to look like they are encouraging something, and some of these creative lawsuits.
We are just wrapping up our coverage of this historic day here in Washington. And so, Jan, I want to ask you, what does this ruling mean for women in America, for the future of politics in America?
I mean, Roe versus Wade was the few decisions Americans can say by name. That decision is history. And this issue of abortion and abortion rights, what it means is the Supreme Court will not have any say anymore. It's going to be up to your elected representatives in the state where you live. And that's where the fight is going to be. And the Supreme Court and its majority is saying that's where it always should have been. Roe was wrongly decided from the start.
Do you expect, Margaret, marches across America, that this becomes the top issue in campaigns?
Absolutely. In fact, I was personally surprised in some ways that this was happening on a Friday, going into a weekend where there are warnings of political violence and marches, and not held for Monday, for example, when people are at work. This is something that we will be tracking very closely.
Thank you very much. And this is a historic day because after nearly 50 years, the Supreme Court has overturned Roe versus Wade, taking away the constitutional right to an abortion. And with that decision, Roe versus Wade is no longer the law of the land. I'm Nora O'Donnell in Washington. We'll have more tonight on the CBS Evening News.
War II, and it was also used during the Korean War.
Wow, so much information you can learn out here. And I love that you can look at the wetlands, you can watch some birds, and of course, you can learn more about everything you have to offer here. You all have this program that you all do. It's the bird banding program. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, we had been doing birding surveys here since 2004. And then in 2013, we started doing bird banding, a federally permitted bander. We work with him and do bird banding once a month. And what it does is that data is uploaded into a regional as well as a national database. So we're able to track the birds not only on this property, but across the state as well.
So cool. And is there a way that we can access all of that information so that when we come out here to hike on these 11-mile trails, we can say, oh, look, that's the bird right there. That's the bird right there.
There's some of that information on our website. We invite people to come to bird banding if you want to really start to learn to identify birds up close. There's habitat here for 17 birds of conservation concern in Louisiana, as well as 9 that are of continental importance. And there's also a survey that you can download that's on our website so that it can help you